The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty shooting range as Maria wiped down the metal surfaces with practiced efficiency. At 28, she had been working as a range maintenance technician for 3 years, a job that paid the bills but never sparked much excitement. Her routine was simple: arrive early, clean the equipment, check the safety barriers, and prepare the facility for the day's shooters. Maria had grown up in a small farming community where guns were tools, not toys. Her father had taught her basic firearm safety when she was 12, mainly for protecting livestock from predators. She could handle a rifle competently enough, but shooting had never been more than a necessity. The idea of competitive shooting or precision marksmanship seemed as foreign to her as quantum physics. That Tuesday started like any other. She methodically cleaned each shooting station, emptying brass casings from the concrete floor and checking the condition of the target mechanisms. The range wouldn't open for another 2 hours, giving her plenty of time to complete her tasks in the peaceful silence she had grown to appreciate. The sound of a car door slamming broke the morning quiet. Maria looked up to see a tall, lean man walking toward the range entrance. His gait was purposeful, confident, and something about the way he carried himself suggested military training. She recognized the signs from the many veterans who frequented the facility. "Excuse me, miss," the stranger called out in a crisp British accent. "I'm looking for James Mitchell, the rangemaster. I have an appointment." Maria glanced at her watch. James wouldn't arrive for another hour. "He's not in yet," she replied, continuing her work. "You're welcome to wait in the office if you'd like." The man introduced himself as Captain William Hayes, recently retired from the British Army's Sniper Corps. He explained that he was in town for a few weeks, consulting with local law enforcement on long-range shooting techniques. James had arranged for him to use the facility's extended range, which stretched nearly 4,000 meters into the desert. As they talked, Maria learned that Captain Hayes had competed in international shooting competitions and had trained some of the world's most skilled marksmen. His stories were fascinating, filled with technical details about wind calculations, bullet trajectories, and the mental discipline required for extreme precision shooting. When James finally arrived, he greeted Captain Hayes warmly and began showing him around the extended range facilities. Maria continued her work, but she found herself listening to their conversation about ballistics and shooting techniques. Something about the precision and science behind long-range shooting intrigued her in a way she hadn't expected. During his tour, Captain Hayes noticed Maria's attentiveness to their discussion. When James mentioned that she was one of their most reliable employees, the British marksman struck up a conversation with her about her experience with firearms. "I grew up around rifles," Maria explained simply. "Nothing fancy, just practical shooting for farm work." Captain Hayes asked a few more questions about her background and was surprised to learn that, despite her modest claims, Maria had an intuitive understanding of shooting fundamentals. Her explanations of how she adjusted for wind and distance when dealing with crop-damaging animals revealed a natural grasp of concepts that many trained shooters struggled to master. "Would you mind if I watched you shoot sometime?" Captain Hayes asked. "I'm always curious about natural shooting ability versus formal training." Maria shrugged, not thinking much of the request. "Sure, I suppose. Though I'm nothing special." What neither of them realized was that this casual conversation would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Maria's humble assessment of her abilities would soon be challenged in ways she never could have imagined. The dusty shooting range that had been simply her workplace was about to become the launching pad for achievements that would surprise everyone, most of all herself. The stage was set for a transformation that would take a maintenance worker who wasn't anything special and reveal talents that had been hidden beneath years of routine and modest expectations. Captain Hayes had trained many shooters, but something told him that Maria might be different from the rest. 3 days later, Maria found herself standing at the firing line with Captain Hayes observing from behind. She felt slightly self-conscious holding the range's standard .308 rifle, knowing that an expert marksman was evaluating her every movement. The target was set at a modest 200 meters, a distance she had shot many times before during her farm days. "Just shoot naturally," Captain Hayes instructed. "Don't think about me being here. Show me how you would normally approach this shot. Maria settled into her stance, the rifle feeling familiar in her hands. She had never been taught formal shooting positions, but her body naturally found a stable, comfortable alignment. Without overthinking the process, she controlled her breathing, found her natural point of aim, and squeezed the trigger with steady pressure. The shot rang out across the empty range. Through his spotting scope, Captain Hayes watched the bullet strike just off center, well within what most would consider an excellent shot. But what impressed him more than the accuracy was Maria's natural shooting form and the unconscious way she had managed her breathing and trigger control. "Not bad," he said, though his tone suggested he was more interested than his casual words implied. "Try another one." Maria fired 4 more shots, each one clustering tightly around the center of the target. Her groups were consistent, showing a level of precision that typically took years of training to develop. More importantly, she displayed no signs of the common shooting mistakes that plagued most amateur marksmen. Captain Hayes made some notes in a small notebook he always carried. "Tell me, have you ever shot at longer distances?" Maria shook her head. "The longest shot I ever made was probably 300 meters, taking down a coyote that was bothering our cattle, but that was years ago. Would you be interested in trying something a bit more challenging?" Captain Hayes asked, his eyes showing a spark of genuine interest. "Nothing too dramatic, perhaps 500 meters to start," Maria agreed, curious despite herself. They moved to a different firing position that offered a clear line of sight to targets at extended ranges. The 500-meter target looked impossibly small through the rifle's scope, but Captain Hayes patiently explained the basics of long-range shooting: how to account for bullet drop, wind drift, and atmospheric conditions. What happened next surprised both of them. Maria absorbed the technical information quickly, asking intelligent questions that showed she understood the underlying physics. When she finally took her shot, the bullet struck within inches of the target center on her first attempt. "Beginner's luck," she said with a modest smile. But Captain Hayes knew better. Luck might account for one good shot. But over the next hour, Maria consistently placed bullets within a tight grouping at 500 meters. Her natural ability to read wind conditions was particularly impressive, something that usually took marksmen years to develop. During a break, Captain Hayes shared stories of his military service and competitive shooting career. He explained how he had discovered his own talent almost by accident during basic training, when an instructor noticed his exceptional scores on the rifle range. That chance observation had changed the entire course of his military career and eventually led to his selection for elite sniper training. "Natural shooting ability is incredibly rare," he told Maria. "I've trained hundreds of soldiers and police officers over the years. Most of them work very hard to achieve basic competency. But occasionally, maybe once every few years, you encounter someone who has an intuitive understanding of marksmanship that can't be taught." Maria listened politely, but she wasn't entirely convinced. To her, hitting a target seemed like a matter of common sense. Line up the sight, account for conditions, and make a smooth trigger pull. She didn't realize that what seemed obvious to her was actually the result of exceptional hand-eye coordination, natural steadiness, and an unconscious ability to process multiple variables simultaneously. As they packed up the equipment, Captain Hayes made a suggestion that would change everything. "Would you be willing to train with me while I'm here? I think you might have more potential than you realize." Maria hesitated. She enjoyed her quiet job and wasn't looking for complications, but something about the challenge appealed to her. The technical aspects of long-range shooting reminded her of the problem-solving she had enjoyed in school, before life had led her toward more practical concerns. "I suppose we could try a few more sessions," she agreed. "But I can only practice after work hours." Captain Hayes smiled, recognizing the same cautious interest he had seen in other naturally gifted shooters. "That's perfect. We'll take it slowly and see what develops." Neither of them could have predicted that this casual agreement would lead to achievements that would challenge everything Maria thought she knew about her own capabilities. The foundation was being laid for a journey that would transform a range maintenance worker into something extraordinary. Over the following 2 weeks, Maria's afternoons took on a completely different character. Instead of heading home after her maintenance duties, She found herself spending hours with Captain Hayes, learning the intricate science of precision shooting. What began as casual instruction quickly evolved into something more serious as her natural abilities became increasingly apparent. Captain Hayes introduced her to advanced concepts that typically overwhelmed new shooters. Minute of angle calculations, atmospheric pressure adjustments, and the complex mathematics of ballistic trajectories. To his amazement, Maria grasped these concepts intuitively, often understanding the practical applications before he finished explaining the theory. Most people struggle with the mental calculations required for long-range shooting, he explained, one evening as they practiced at 800 meters. You seem to process multiple variables simultaneously without conscious effort. Maria shrugged, focused on her target through the scope. It's like farming, she said simply. You learn to read conditions, adjust for what you can control, and accept what you can't. Her comparison was more accurate than she realized. Years of agricultural work had developed her ability to observe subtle environmental changes, make quick practical decisions, and maintain steady hands under pressure. Skills that had seemed mundane in a farming context proved invaluable in precision shooting. The breakthrough came during their third week of training. Captain Hayes had set up a challenging scenario at 200 meters, a distance that would test even experienced competitive shooters. The target was barely visible through the spotting scope, and crosswinds were gusting unpredictably across the range. This is significantly more difficult than anything we've attempted, Captain Hayes warned. Don't be disappointed if it takes several sessions to achieve consistent hits at this distance. Maria nodded, settling into the shooting position they had been refining. She studied the wind flags strung along the range, noting how the breeze shifted at different distances. Through the rifle scope, she observed the heat mirage rising from the desert floor, using it to gauge wind direction and intensity. Her first shot missed the target entirely, striking the dirt backstop several feet to the right. Instead of frustration, Maria showed only analytical interest, immediately asking Captain Hayes about the bullet's impact point and what it revealed about her wind calculation. The second shot hit the outer edge of the target. The third shot struck closer to center. By her fifth attempt, Maria was consistently placing bullets within the target's scoring rings, achieving accuracy that impressed even her experienced instructor. This is remarkable, Captain Hayes said, reviewing her shot group through binoculars. Most competitive shooters require months of dedicated practice to achieve this level of consistency at 200 meters. James Mitchell, the range master, had been watching from the observation area. He approached with obvious curiosity about Maria's unexpected transformation. I never would have guessed, he admitted. She's always been reliable with her work, but I had no idea she had this kind of shooting talent. Word began to spread among the range's regular customers. Veterans, competitive shooters, and law enforcement officers started paying attention to the quiet maintenance worker who was achieving extraordinary results under Captain Hayes's guidance. Some offered encouragement, others expressed friendly skepticism, but everyone was curious about her rapid progress. Maria found herself enjoying the technical challenges more than she had anticipated. Each shooting session presented new problems to solve, different lighting conditions, varying wind patterns, and increasingly difficult distances. The mental discipline required reminded her of the focused attention she had brought to her academic studies years earlier. Captain Hayes began introducing more advanced equipment, including precision rifles and high-quality optics that revealed her capabilities more clearly. With better tools, Maria's natural abilities became even more apparent. Her groups tightened, her consistency improved, and her confidence grew steadily. During quiet moments between shooting exercises, Captain Hayes shared stories from international competitions and military operations. He described the mental pressure of high-stakes shooting, the years of training required to compete at elite levels, and the rare individuals who possessed the combination of physical skills and mental toughness necessary for extreme precision. Marksmanship. Professional competitive shooting is incredibly demanding, he explained. The technical requirements are obvious, but the psychological challenges are equally important. The ability to perform under pressure, maintain concentration for extended periods, and recover from inevitable mistakes separates good shooters from exceptional ones. Maria listened carefully, but she wasn't thinking about competition or recognition. For her, the appeal lay in the pure challenge of the discipline itself, the satisfaction of solving complex technical problems and the quiet pride that came from steady improvement. As their training sessions continued, Captain Hayes began to realize that he was witnessing something special. Maria's natural shooting ability was impressive, but her mental approach to the discipline was even more remarkable. She displayed the calm focus and analytical mindset that characterized the world's best precision shooters, combined with a humble attitude that kept her constantly learning and improving. The foundation was being laid for achievements that would soon challenge the limits of what anyone thought possible. As Maria's training progressed into the 4th week, Captain Hayes began to suspect that her abilities extended far beyond what either of them had initially imagined. Her consistency at 2,200 meters had become routine, and she was beginning to express curiosity about the range's maximum capabilities. The facility's extended course stretched nearly 4,000 meters into the desert, but few shooters ever attempted distances beyond 2,000 meters. "Have you ever wondered what your limits might be?" Captain Hayes asked one afternoon as they cleaned their equipment after another successful session. Maria considered the question seriously. "I suppose everyone has limits," she replied, "but I don't think I've found mine yet." Her response revealed the quiet confidence that had been building over weeks of steady improvement. Maria had begun to trust her abilities without becoming overconfident, a psychological balance that Captain Hayes recognized as essential for extreme precision shooting. The next phase of training introduced challenges that pushed the boundaries of conventional marksmanship. At 2,500 meters, environmental factors became dramatically more significant. Wind patterns could change multiple times along the bullet's flight path, atmospheric pressure variations affected trajectory calculations, and even the Earth's rotation began to influence bullet placement. Captain Hayes provided increasingly sophisticated equipment to match the technical demands. A precision rifle chambered in .338, Lapua Magnum replaced the standard .308, offering superior ballistic performance at extended ranges. High magnification optics revealed target details that were invisible to the naked eye, while electronic wind meters provided data that informed complex mathematical calculations. Maria absorbed each new piece of equipment and technical knowledge with the same methodical approach she had always brought to her work. She maintained detailed shooting logs, recording atmospheric conditions, ammunition performance, and the results of each shot. Her notes became increasingly sophisticated as she developed her own shorthand for tracking the variables that affected long-range accuracy. The breakthrough to extreme distances came unexpectedly. During a particularly calm morning with ideal atmospheric conditions, Captain Hayes suggested attempting a shot at 2,000 meters. The target at that distance was barely visible even through powerful spotting scopes, requiring absolute precision. In every aspect of the shooting process, Maria spent nearly 20 minutes preparing for the shot, studying wind conditions, calculating ballistic data, and mentally rehearsing her shooting sequence. When she finally settled into position, her movements were deliberate and controlled, reflecting weeks of disciplined practice. The shot seemed to hang in the air forever before the distant target system registered a hit. Captain Hayes confirmed the impact through his spotting scope. A solid hit within the target scoring rings at a distance that challenged even world-class competitive shooters. "That was not luck," he said simply, his tone reflecting genuine admiration. Word of Maria's achievement spread quickly through the local shooting community. Experienced marksmen began visiting the range specifically to observe her training sessions. Some offered advice, others asked technical questions, but most simply watched in fascination as a maintenance worker consistently achieved results that exceeded their own capabilities. The attention made Maria somewhat uncomfortable, but Captain Hayes helped her understand that her abilities were genuinely exceptional. Natural talent combined with proper training and the right mental approach is incredibly rare, he explained. What you're achieving deserves recognition. As their time together entered its final weeks, Captain Hayes began preparing Maria for even more ambitious challenges. He introduced her to competitive shooting regulations, explained the verification procedures required for record attempts, and described the international organizations that governed precision marksmanship competitions. "I think you're ready to attempt something that very few people have ever achieved," he said one afternoon. "The current long-range shooting records are held by military snipers and competitive shooters who have dedicated their entire careers to this discipline. But I believe you have the ability to challenge those standards." Maria felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The idea of attempting official records seemed far removed from her original intention to simply learn about long-range shooting, but the technical challenge appealed to her, and weeks of training had built confidence in her abilities. Captain Hayes explained the requirements for documenting extreme long-range shots: multiple witnesses, precise measurement of distances, verification of equipment specifications, and detailed recording of atmospheric conditions. The process was demanding, but it ensured that any achieved records would be legitimate and recognized by the international shooting community. They began planning for an attempt at distances approaching 3,000 meters, a range that would place Maria among the world's most capable precision shooters. The technical challenges would be immense, requiring perfect coordination of equipment, environmental conditions, and shooting technique. As Maria prepared for this ultimate test of her newfound abilities, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. Months earlier, she had been simply cleaning equipment and preparing targets for other people's shooting activities. Now she was preparing to attempt achievements that would establish her as one of the world's most skilled marksmen. The transformation seemed almost impossible to believe, but the evidence was undeniable. Her consistent accuracy, mental discipline, and technical understanding had reached levels that impressed even the most experienced observers. The stage was set for a final challenge that would test everything she had learned. The morning of the record attempt arrived with perfect atmospheric conditions, minimal wind, stable air pressure, and clear visibility that stretched endlessly across the desert range. Captain Hayes had spent days coordinating the logistics, ensuring that proper witnesses, measurement equipment, and documentation procedures were in place. The target was positioned at exactly 3,285 meters, a distance that would establish a new benchmark for precision shooting if achieved. Maria arrived at the range early, following her usual routine despite the extraordinary nature of the day. She methodically checked her equipment, reviewed her ballistic calculations, and prepared her shooting position with the same careful attention to detail that had characterized all her training. The familiar rituals helped calm the nervous energy that came with knowing that experienced shooters and officials were gathering to witness her attempt. Several notable figures had assembled to observe the record attempt. Representatives from shooting organizations, competitive marksmen who held previous records, and military personnel with extensive sniper experience formed an impressive group of witnesses. Their presence added weight to the occasion, but also created pressure that Maria had never experienced before. Captain Hayes briefed the assembled observers on the verification procedures, explaining how the shot would be documented and validated. Electronic timing equipment would measure the bullet's flight time, while multiple spotters would confirm the point of impact using high-magnification optical equipment. Every aspect of the attempt would be recorded to meet international standards for extreme long-range shooting records. The technical challenges at 3,285 meters were formidable. The bullet would be in flight for nearly 4 seconds, during which time even slight wind variations could deflect its path significantly. Atmospheric pressure, humidity, and temperature all affected trajectory calculations, requiring precise measurements and complex mathematical adjustments. The target itself was barely visible even through powerful scopes, demanding absolute precision in aiming and shooting technique. Maria spent over an hour preparing for the shot, taking atmospheric readings, studying wind patterns at multiple points along the range, and calculating the ballistic data that would govern her aim point. Her shooting log filled with detailed notes as she worked through each variable that might influence the bullet's flight path. The assembled observers watched in fascination as Maria demonstrated the methodical approach that Captain Hayes had taught her. Her preparation was thorough but not rushed, reflecting the mental discipline that separated exceptional marksmen from merely skilled ones. Several experienced shooters commented quietly on her professional demeanor and technical competence. When Maria finally settled into her shooting position, the range fell completely silent. She controlled her breathing, found her natural point of aim, and began the final sequence that would determine success or failure. Through the rifle scope, the distant target was little more than a small geometric shape wavering in the heat. Mirage. The shot seemed to echo across the desert for an eternity. Every observer strained to see the distant target through binoculars and spotting scopes, waiting for confirmation of impact. The electronic timing equipment registered the bullet's flight time, but visual confirmation would determine whether the shot had found its mark. "Impact confirmed," called the primary spotter, his voice carrying clearly across the range. "Center hit at 3,185 meters. The assembled witnesses erupted in applause and excited conversation. Several experienced marksmen approached Maria with "Congratulations," expressing genuine admiration for an achievement that few would have thought possible from someone with such limited competitive experience. The shot had not only reached its intended target but had struck within the precise center area, demonstrating accuracy that exceeded the minimum requirements for a record. Captain Hayes beamed with pride as he reviewed the documentation with official witnesses. Every requirement had been met. Proper measurement of distance, verification of equipment specifications, and confirmation of impact by multiple qualified observers. The achievement would stand as a legitimate record, recognized by international shooting organizations. Maria accepted the congratulations with characteristic modesty, but her quiet satisfaction was evident. The technical challenge had been immense, requiring everything she had learned about precision shooting, but her preparation had been thorough and her execution flawless. The shot represented the culmination of weeks of intensive training and natural ability that had surprised everyone, including herself. As news of the achievement began to spread beyond the immediate group of witnesses, Maria found herself the subject of attention that she had never sought or expected. Shooting publications requested interviews, competitive organizations extended invitations to prestigious events, and equipment manufacturers expressed interest in sponsorship opportunities. The transformation from range maintenance worker to world-class marksman was complete, but Maria remained fundamentally unchanged by her newfound recognition. She continued to approach shooting with the same methodical dedication that had characterized her original training, viewing each achievement as a step in an ongoing learning process rather than a final destination. Captain Hayes prepared to conclude his consulting assignment with a deep sense of satisfaction. He had discovered and developed natural talent that exceeded his most optimistic expectations, helping to establish shooting records that would inspire and challenge marksmen for years to come. The experience had reminded him why he had dedicated his career to precision marksmanship and the rare privilege of working with exceptional individuals. The record shot at 3,285 meters would be remembered as a remarkable achievement, but for Maria it represented something more personal. Proof that extraordinary capabilities could emerge from the most unexpected circumstances when natural ability met dedicated training and the right opportunities. 6 months after achieving her record-breaking shot at 3,285 meters, Maria's life had settled into a new rhythm that balanced her newfound recognition with her fundamental values and preferences. The shooting world had embraced her achievement enthusiastically, but she had chosen her path forward carefully, accepting opportunities that aligned with her interests while declining those that felt incompatible with her personality and goals. She continued working at the shooting range, but her role had evolved significantly. James Mitchell had promoted her to head instructor, recognizing that her technical expertise and teaching ability made her invaluable for training advanced shooters. Her classes filled quickly with students eager to learn from someone who had achieved extraordinary results despite starting without formal competitive experience. Maria discovered that she enjoyed teaching almost as much as shooting itself. Her practical approach to instruction resonated with students who had struggled with overly theoretical training methods. She emphasized fundamental skills, methodical preparation, and the mental discipline that she considered essential for consistent accuracy. Her students appreciated her patient demeanor and genuine desire to help them improve. Captain Hayes had returned to England, but they maintained regular correspondence about technical developments in precision shooting and training methodologies. He had written several articles about Maria's achievement for international shooting publications, highlighting the importance of recognizing natural talent and the value of proper instruction. His documentation of her training process had become a reference for other instructors working with promising marksmen. The shooting industry had responded to Maria's success with considerable interest. Several equipment manufacturers had approached her about endorsement opportunities, and she had carefully selected partnerships with companies whose products she genuinely used and trusted. The additional income allowed her to invest in advanced equipment and training opportunities, but she avoided commitments that would compromise her integrity or independence. Competitive shooting organizations had extended numerous invitations for Maria to participate in prestigious events. She had accepted a few carefully chosen competitions, achieving respectable results that confirmed her abilities under formal competitive conditions. However, she discovered that she preferred the technical challenges of extreme long-range shooting to the social aspects of competitive events. Her most significant project involved collaborating with a university research program that studied the physics and psychology of extreme precision shooting. Maria's detailed shooting logs and analytical approach to marksmanship provided valuable data for academic research, while the university's resources helped her understand the scientific principles underlying her intuitive shooting abilities. The research collaboration had led to innovations in training methodologies and equipment design that benefited the entire precision shooting community. Maria's practical insights, combined with academic rigor, produced findings that advanced the sport's technical foundations. She took particular satisfaction in contributing to knowledge that would help other shooters achieve their potential. Personal recognition had come from unexpected sources. The local community took pride in Maria's achievement, and she had received commendations from civic organizations and law enforcement agencies. A scholarship fund had been established in her name to support young people interested in precision shooting sports, reflecting her commitment to encouraging others to discover their own capabilities. Despite the attention and opportunities, Maria remained grounded in the values that had shaped her original approach to shooting. She continued to view marksmanship as a technical discipline that rewarded preparation, practice, and mental discipline rather than natural talent alone. Her success had not diminished her respect for other skilled shooters or her recognition that continuous learning was essential for sustained excellence. The range where everything had begun remained her primary training location. She had developed advanced courses that pushed the facility's capabilities to their limits, creating training programs that attracted serious marksmen from around the country. The desert range that had once been simply her workplace had become a destination for shooters seeking to test their abilities at extreme distances. Maria's story had inspired others to explore their own potential in precision shooting. Several students who had trained with her had achieved significant competitive success, carrying forward the methodical approach and technical emphasis that characterized her instruction. She took particular pride in seeing former students succeed in ways that exceeded their original expectations. Looking toward the future, Maria contemplated new challenges that would continue to develop her abilities and contribute to the shooting sports community. She was interested in exploring even greater distances, developing new training methodologies, and perhaps writing about the technical aspects of extreme precision shooting. Her achievements had opened doors to opportunities she could never have imagined, but her fundamental motivation remained the same: the satisfaction of continuous improvement and the joy of helping others discover their own capabilities. The journey from range maintenance worker to world record holder had been extraordinary, but Maria understood that it represented a beginning rather than a conclusion. The principles that had guided her success, methodical preparation, continuous learning, and humble confidence, would continue to shape whatever challenges lay ahead. Her story had become an inspiration to others, proof that exceptional achievements could emerge from the most unexpected circumstances when natural ability met opportunity and dedicated effort.